टीच ऑनलाइन, जी हाँ, टीच ऑनलाइन पे साइमा आपके सामने। हमने बातें बहुत सारी की, बहुत सारे लोगों से बात की। कुछ अर्से पहले मैंने एक पोस्ट भी डाली थी ऑनलाइन जहाँ पे मैंने पूछा था कि ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपिस्ट कौन होते हैं। तो कुछ मिले जुले जवाब आए, कुछ जवाब सही, कुछ गलत। लेकिन ये कि हमें इस चीज़ को जानने की ज़रूरत है कि हम कहाँ स्टैंड करते हैं और फर्दर हमें कहाँ पे डेवलप करना है, यहाँ किस डायरेक्शन में हमें जाना है। तो उसके लिए ज़रूरी है कि हम एक ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपिस्ट से डायरेक्टली बात करें और उससे डायरेक्टली कनेक्ट करें। तो आज हमने कोशिश की है कि एक यूएस से जो है एक ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपिस्ट को हमने कनेक्ट किया है। उनका नाम है चेन्नी। लेकिन मेक श्योर हमें जाहिर है कि इंग्लिश में बात करनी पड़ेगी बिकॉज उनकी नेटिव लैंग्वेज वो है और वही समझेंगी। और लेकिन ये कि आप कनेक्टेड रहिएगा। जहाँ जहाँ पे अगर आपको कोई कमेंट करना हो, कुछ भी करना हो, डेफिनेटली कमेंट करें, अपने आप की प्रेजेंस दिखाएं और जी हाँ बोलते चले जाएं ताकि कि हमें पता चले कि आप हमारे साथ हैं। तो जेरी का मैं ज़्यादा इंट्रोडक्शन नहीं दूंगी, वो अपना इंट्रोडक्शन खुद देंगी। बेटर यही होगा। लेट्स टेक हर ऑन स्टेज। Hello, Jenny. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you? I'm incredibly honored and grateful to have conversation with you early this morning.
That's great to have you on this platform today because there'll be a lot of people watching us. People are already connecting. See, you can see the comments right here. Thank you. We are receiving a lot of thanks for you that you've been here with the useful topic that is the need of the hour. Jenny, would you like to introduce a bit of yourself? How, where, why an occupational therapist?
Yeah, so thank you for all that you're doing to the world, and thank you for everyone that's watching and for all the people that will be watching. I'm just incredibly grateful and thankful to have this opportunity. So a little bit about me. My name is Connie Messinger. I primarily work as a pediatric occupational therapist. Over the years, I've worked with children 0 to about 13, 14 years old. I've also have had the opportunity over the past few years to teach at university. I have taught 1.5 graduate level occupational therapy courses. One of the courses that I primarily have taught is child development, really understanding occupational development as it relates to children 0 to 18 years old. And I've also helped co-teach the last year course for pediatric interventions. And it's all about treatment for kids that have disabilities and what are different OT interventions, ideologies, different methods and skills that students learn. So when they are an occupational therapist, they can implement it with their pediatric clients as well. I've also, when I've gotten permission at university during the courses that I've taught to implement about 15 minutes during each class on mindfulness meditation. And that's a topic that I'm just incredibly passionate about. And I'm currently working on my thesis in a doctoral program, Thomas Jefferson, on mindfulness meditation and occupational-based program for a pediatric population as well. And a big hallmark of the things that I do, I've had opportunity also to speak locally and internationally on mindfulness meditation and on learning to live a very empowered and rich life. And I've had the opportunity to speak all over, and all the things that I've been doing over the years, it really comes back to being in the service of others. How can I be of assistance to individuals that are interested? And that was really what drawed me to occupational therapy. And that's what drawed me to speak and to really just share for people that are interested, different ideas, different treatment, different suggestions, different things. And I share a lot of different ideas and a lot of different things. And some things may work for certain people, some things may not, maybe a combination of the two. And the idea is to just put things out there and be in service so people can have resources, have different tools to really help ultimately live the most empowered life that any individual has the ability and the capability to be able to do.
If I ask you in a way wherein occupational therapists, do we relate to a differently abled students, particularly children?
So occupational therapists can work in diverse fields. So they can work in a hospital setting, they can work with the elderly, they can work with the adult population, they can work on driving rehabilitation, they can work within mental health settings. For me, I primarily work in the pediatric setting, and every setting is going to be collectively within all the settings that you're working as an occupational therapist, whether it's adults or kids or geriatrics or pediatric, whatever it may be, it ultimately comes down to occupational engagement, quality of life, meaningful, purposeful activity, and really living a well functional life, depending on what the individual wants to be able to do. Within pediatric, and my emphasis and my focus is, what is the primary occupation? What is the primary task and activity that a child does throughout their day? And typically it's play. That's how they're learning. That's how they're growing. And yes, they're in a school setting and there's expectation in the school, but typically children's primary occupation is play. For adults, their primary occupation may be play and maybe work or maybe caring for children or caring for elderly parents or whatever it may be. For children, their primary occupation is collectively for play. So a lot of the times as an occupational therapist and working with children, I'm looking at their play skills. And when I'm looking at their play skills, I'm assessing and I'm typically looking at a few main areas. And the big area collectively is their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, their visual perceptual skills, their sensory processing skills, and their activities of daily living. And yeah, within each of those categories, there's intricate parts. And I can explain very briefly what, let's say, gross motor skills. So gross motor skills are large muscle motion, large muscle movements. Walking, jumping, running, being able to sit in an upright position, that would be considered a gross motor type of motion and movement. So I'm looking at a child and I want to see what is their gross motor skills, especially as it relates to functionality. If I'm in a school setting, can they get to and from the classroom? Are they having the ability to be able to walk? Are they able to, when they're in the classroom, are they able to, or even during the therapy session, and typically the sessions that I do, it's one-on-one. So when they are coming to the session, are they able to sit in an upright position in the chair in my room or in their classroom, or are they slouched over? And some of the times if they're slouching over, that could be an indication maybe something is going on with their core and their belly muscle. So it's something that I assess and to determine, are they having weakness with their core? Are they having weakness with running or jumping? And maybe I can come up with different treatment and ideas to strengthen those areas. So that's in a nutshell of gross motor. And then another area that I like to look at is fine motor skills. And fine motor comes to small muscle movements. Yes. Primarily, it has a lot to do with the hands, exactly. And especially within the school setting, it has a lot to do with being able to hold a pencil. How are they holding a pencil or a crayon? How are they able to manipulate? Are they able to have good where's my hand? Are they able to take a coin and bring it from their palm to their fingers? Are they able to take a coin from their fingers and bring it to their palm? Are they able to do that with a pen or a pencil? Let's say they're writing something and they make mistakes. Are they able to manipulate that pencil, turn it over to be able? So that's a lot of in-hand manipulation, a lot of translation. So I look at that. Also want to assess and look at their ability, their hand strength. Are they able to open and close their snap, open and close the door, open and close jars, open and close maybe their zipper or their backpack? That's another idea of like their fine motor skills that I'd want to assess. Can they use a hole puncher? And a hole puncher, I'll usually use it as an indication of their hand strength. Are they able to hole punch? Or are they not able to hole punch? And if they are, how many can they do, to see also their endurance of their hand strength as well. Another area that I like to assess is their visual perception, which has a lot to do with, there's many different subcategories. There's foreground, there's foreground, there is visual discrimination. There's a lot of main categories, but like collectively, vision perception is how am I using my eyes and being able to interpret what am I seeing. So how can it be important for school? So let's say, for example, a child is looking for something in their backpack and there's a lot of things in it. Are they able to find that pencil amongst their folders and their notebooks? Some children may be able to, some children may not. And if they're not able to, there might be a challenge or a trickiness maybe with their visual perception. It might be stemming from other things, but that could be something that I would take into consideration and make me wonder a little bit about as well. Another thing that comes to mind in terms of visual perception, it also kind of goes into eye-hand coordination. How is the child doing when they're looking at the board and they need to write? They need to copy what's written on the board. Are they able to do that? Are they able to write inside the lines? Is there letters above the lines, below the lines? So that's also another area just generally with visual perception. Another area that I look at is sensory and sensory processing. How are they responsive? I'm calling the child's name. Are they hearing me calling their name? Is the child able to sit in their chair, or are they constantly touching and running? Is the child tolerating certain textures on their body? Maybe there's some tactile thing. Maybe they're touching and feeling everything. Is the child seeking movement, or is the child not really adverse to movement? Is the child eating most foods, or is the child not eating most foods? Is the child having a preference to certain foods? And it's a lot of like questions like that to really also get a sense, what is their sensory system? And within their sensory system, I'm looking at three primal things. I want to look at their proprioception, which is where their body is in space, really the exertion of their muscles in space, and that has a lot to do with the muscle spindles. I want to look at their vestibular system, which is one of the primal system, which has to do with our movement, and it has to do with our position of our head, and also their tactile system as well, because in relation to school, especially let's say in their tactile, if students are waiting on a line and one student is getting too close to another, is the student like melting down? If they're getting too close to the other student, that might be an indication that there's some type of sensory processing tendency or trickiness with that. And I think a lot of people may not realize that. So it's just to have that idea.
Yeah, Chanie, what I can derive out of it is these are all those simple actions that may be performed by the students on a regular basis. We never realize that there may be some kind of a need that they might have, due to which they are acting or reacting like that. And you pointed out very minor things, wherein you pointed out that even finding out something from the bag, if they are unable to do that, means there's something wrong over there. So this is something that we were never aware of. Maybe we never even consider that important enough to look into as well. And we think that it's just a disengagement, or the child doesn't want to do it. Is it how would you derive that? Because how would a parent identify that it's an occupational therapist need and not a disengagement or something that's not willingness? Because we usually say that child is not willing to do it, that's why it's not doing it. So how do we identify the need of occupational therapist? What are the symptoms that we can find from the child that yes, she or he needs an occupational therapist, and it's not a normal thing to go about?
So that's a really great question, and it's really going to vary from one child to the other, and it's really collectively, what is the teacher saying? How is the student functioning in the classroom? How is this child functioning at home? Is
Right.
Depending really on the child and their age. Let's say if they're over the age of, let's say, 8, and are they able to write their name? Are they able to do the ABCs? Are they able to form sentences? And if they're not able to, that can be a little bit of a red flag. Some other
Okay.
red flags that would come into play: are they able to complete puzzles? If they're not able to complete puzzles, that can also be a red flag. And if they're past a certain age as well, how are they holding their pencil? Are they able to open and close things? How are they interacting and socializing with other kids? Are they interacting, or are they socializing, or are they having challenges, or maybe they're a little bit inappropriate with other children or with these siblings in their home? Are they not eating a lot of foods? Or are they constantly up and about and touching and feeling things? Or are they getting very distracted very easily? Are they having difficulty completing very simple tasks in the classroom? What is the teacher noting? Because typically the teacher spends a lot of time with the students, and they can really say, like, academically, are they struggling? Maybe they're struggling with math or science. Maybe there is a cognitive thing, or maybe there might be some type of occupational therapy. Maybe it's because the child is very weak. Is the child having difficulty sitting in the classroom? Is the child getting distracted by visual things in the classroom? Is the child having difficulty getting from one area of the school building to another area of the school building? Are they getting lost in the school building? Do they know how to get from one place to another? That's also another thing that comes into mind. Are they able to do basic movements and yoga poses? Are they able to do sit-ups and push-ups and pull-ups age appropriately and expectedly? For children that are pretty young, they're not really expected to, but as a child is 7 or 8, they should be able to do a couple of these. Or how is their balance? Are they falling? Are they tripping? Do they constantly have bruises all over their body? How are they tolerating the pool, let's say, and now it's summer here? Are they able to go swimming? Are they able to tolerate the water? Are they able to make bubbles in the water? How are they trying to think of what other things.
But the things that you're pointing out, Jenny, it's 90% of the students are like that. 90% of the children are like that. So again, it's a big question, wherein how are we going to identify that the need is urgent and we need to see the therapist? Because let me tell you one thing, the research has proven that there are more than 50% of such children who needs who has this special need, who are differently abled, or they are, they need some support from an occupational therapist. But we don't realize, and we can't even communicate this to parents, because parents do take it very negatively. They feel that, you're calling their child a special child, which is not generally seen, but it can be identified from his acts, or maybe a little disengagement of the child, or maybe this little speech problem maybe. But then again, it is difficult to communicate to the parents, and it's difficult to identify as well, and the percentage is way too large. So how to go about this, wherein you have to deal with the parents as well, you have to identify the child on the right age as well. What would be the right age then?
I would say there are developmental milestones, and there's an assessment tool that I really like to use. It's called the HELP. They have it from 0 to 3, and then I think they have another one from 3 and above, and those developmentally show the milestones. But anytime when I am working with parents and kids aren't at the typical milestone, I'm not very concerned. If it's a lot of areas, that's when it's concerned. So if a child is really struggling, let's say with a few things, it's not just one thing. It's not that they're not able to get dressed on their own. It's not only that they're having difficulty with their handwriting. It's like a collectiveness of things, and the child, in comparison to their peers, is really, really, really struggling. And to really tweeze that out, and the realization that occupational therapy, speech therapy, special ed, and other services can really complement the child and really help support the child. And occupational therapy services may just be for a year or 2 years, and sometimes some children may need it for longer, but it really depends on the child. And really, really, for children that are needing services, and I tell this to parents, and now at this point I'm primarily working with 0 to 3-year-old. 0 to 7 years old, the brain has there's something called neuroplasticity, where the brain has the ability really to be like a sponge, and children's brain is really, really neuroplastic because their brain is not fully developed, it's not fully wired. And enriching experience, the earlier the child is exposed, and as best as parents can, even if the child is not receiving services, there's no need, enriching ways, an enriching environment through touch and through feel and through movement, that's the key for children. That's how they're learning. So the idea is, if a child is struggling, really noticing it right away, having evaluations, having screenings, having evaluations, talking to professionals, ideally nip it in the bud as the child is younger, because as the child gets older, it's not to say the brain does have neuroplasticity, but it's not as much. It's not to say that if you're 25 and you want to learn a new language, you can't. 110% you can't. However, it's a lot easier when you are younger too. So it's the realization of, let's say, with any therapy or with any skill that a child is struggling, want to try to teach it as long as you can. It's not to say if a child is 8 or 9 and you're noticing there's challenges or there's trickiness now, that, okay, that's the end. I can't, like, the child's not going to be able to learn the new skill. 100% they can. It'll take maybe a little bit longer, but we still have neuroplasticity. But it's the realization, ideally, because there's critical time periods for development of certain skills. And if you're able to work on and cultivate developing those skills at those time frames, it'll kind of make things a little bit easier as the child gets older.
Okay, one more question here. I want to ask, you said that there are milestones for each age that the child should be able to perform a certain task. So are these milestones available anywhere wherein we can share it with our audience, and they can, they can tally that, and or they can apply that in their real life, wherein they can see if the child is able to do at the certain thing at a certain age level? Is that available somewhere, or it can be made available to the
I'm gonna see
audience?
after this interview, I'm gonna see how I can figure out how to give you a resource that you can share with parents. I personally haven't seen one that I'm really keen about. So I'm going to look into it and to see that if I can find. I really like the CDC guidelines. I've seen some pretty good ones there. I'm trying to think of where else I've seen. I really like the HELP, but the HELP is an assessment, and it's a paid assessment. So I'm not going to be able to share that, but I will see if I can find another way or another method or something that I can share.
Yes, because it might be available online, but we would like to have it from an expert because that would be an endorsed, thing to follow. Rather than following any random thing, we'll be able to follow something that is endorsed by an expert
Yeah.
like you.
So when I'm typically looking at the milestones, I'm typically not following it to the T. Like I said, it's a general idea of it, and when I'm teaching it to the students as well, it's to have an idea. This is expected at this age, but it's an average. So if a child is, let's say, child is supposed to be able to be able to draw a circle at 3 years old, and if they're, let's say, they're 3.5 and they're still not able to do it, however they're able to do a square and lines and horizontal other things, I won't be so concerned about it. So it's really looking at it collectively, like, okay, age appropriate, it's X, but my child is not doing this, but they can do some other things. So it's also the realization. So I'm never really to the T. I like using it as a nice outline and a nice guideline when I am looking at it to get more of a sense, and I know, okay, a child is supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and if collectively a lot of the areas they're not able to do it, that's when I'm like questioning. But it's really, I don't use it to the T.
Okay, one more thing. You said that they need to see OT, but tell me one more thing that what negative impact it would have if the child is not catered at the right time. What would be the negative impact of on that child?
So let's say for a child that's not receiving, let's say, therapy in general or any treatment or any
Intervention.
approach. So children have a comparison to compare themselves to their peers. So if a child is
Yes.
saying, my friend is able to write nicely, sit nicely, I'm not able to, the child can develop low self-esteem, low self-worth, low confidence. And if the child, let's say, for example, is having difficulty with movement, maybe they're having some type of difficulty with running or jumping or hopping, and they're playing a lot of sports, and especially for boys that may be playing a lot of sports. I know for the school system and the school that I've worked in, where like it's for boys, like being able to play sports is something that's very like looked high upon, and the children that are on the team, people are all like gung-ho about. So for the child, they may develop low self-esteem, low self-worth, low confidence, and then they may also, if they're looking different or if they're acting different, they may actually get bullied, and they may experience this victim mentality and this victim mindset as well. And one of the indirect ways with occupational therapy, and especially when I'm creating activities, doing an activity analysis, I'm making activities that are client-centered and individualized within the zone of proximal development of the child's ability. So it's not too easy, not too hard. So it's cultivating the sense of self-confidence and self-efficacy. And it's building up that child's confidence, especially if the child is having the awareness that they're having trickiness and challenges. And one of my big things is confidence and self-efficacy and their ability and frustration tolerance, and that I can do it. And maybe things are a little bit challenging, a little bit harder for me, but I could do it and I will do it. I'm doing the best that I can. And for parents, having conversation with their children, whether the child is struggling or not, just the conversation of, yes, this building this confidence and the self-efficacy, and giving praise for when a child is doing something, even if it's something easy, and even if they're not doing it to the T exactly, praising and encouraging, giving good words. I personally believe there's no need for negativity. There's no need for a parent to say, oh, you didn't do it like this, or you should have. No, the child put in the effort, the child tried. That in itself is like, wow. We want to be able to build children that are living the life to their abilities that they can, and we want to help promote their self-esteem and self-worth, and don't want the negativity. It's not necessary. When I'm doing, let's say I'm teaching little ones at this point, 3-year-olds, we're doing basic yoga poses, and I'm doing it directly with parents. And these children, they're little, and a lot of them are having difficulty with movement and motion and with core strength, and they're not doing, let's say, a tree pose to the T. And before even doing it, I'll have conversation with the parent, and I'll tell them, your child is trying to do the motion, even if it's not to the T. Let's praise, and we're going to teach. And one time we'll do it. Maybe I'll give a little minute tweak. Oh, maybe let's try your arms a little bit higher, and a little bit tweaking, but not too much that the child is feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it well. It's the idea that I'm doing it and I'm trying, and tapping it and allowing that child to stay within his own innate ability and to cultivate that confidence from inside the child, not from you and I, not from the praise, but from the child feeling that support, whether it's right or not right, whatever it may be, just using words mindfully and giving praise, giving encouragement, so that the child can develop that self-esteem and self-worth.
I really like the point where you connected it with the zone of proximal development. Let me establish a little bit about zone of proximal development. Vygotsky concept wherein the zone of proximal development is a mastery level. And the knowledgeable one is the one who supports the child to reach to that mastery level. So it's like little scaffoldings that you need to provide to the child to be able to reach to that level. So that may be, that scaffolding may help some children, it may not help the other. So you have to have a variety over there to be able to reach to that objective that you have designed for the entire classroom. So Jenny, my question here is that can teacher play any role in such situation wherein if she encounters some kind of a differently abled child in the classroom, in a mainstream classroom?
Yeah,
Will the teacher be able to do something?
I would say if the teacher is noticing that the child is struggling, reaching out to an occupational therapist. I do consultations, so people can feel free to email me or to reach out to me on Facebook. It's CHANIEMESSINGER. That's my Facebook, my Instagram, and my email is just .com. So I'd be honored and love to be of service and to help as consultation. So if a teacher is noticing that a child is struggling, really reaching out to an occupational therapist. That's number one. And number two, if teachers can take, and I do in-services and I do give courses, and I'm in the process of further developing my website, and I am focusing in on occupational therapy-based skills on fine motor and gross motor and the importance of sleep and ADLs. And just if the teacher has access and availability to take courses and to take occupational therapy courses so they can learn some of the skills, especially if occupational therapy is not in the school and financially it may not be an option. So the teachers have and the principals have that ability to be able to do that. And ultimately, another occupational therapist can maybe not be working in the school, but can serve as a consult of ideas and suggestions. And occupational therapists can virtually be able to see the classroom, give ideas, different suggestions. I personally believe that every classroom should have a sensory corner. Doesn't matter whether the children are 5, 10, or 15, just a place for the child to be. And I was recently thinking about there should also be a sensory teacher corner too, because the teachers also get stressed out and the teachers also have anxiety. So why not have 2 corners or or even just one area for adult things and maybe even for some children things, because we all need that space, whether we're an adult or a child. So I was also thinking about that. So I have worked with a school in Florida last year of regrouping the school and giving ideas and suggestions within the school with all the different ages, and it's just been really incredible experience doing that. So I love doing that. So teachers are interested in more about how to accommodate their classroom, how to better accommodate their students, how to better maybe interact or strengthen their ability to connect and work with parents. I would be honored to have that and to help for people that are interested.
That's a brilliant recommendation by you, Jenny. Sensory corner for children and sensory corner for teachers, so that you're able to vent out yourself or you feel a little better being in that corner for some time, and it refreshes you for another session or another class or another set of students. That's a brilliant idea. But then again, Jenny, in order to set up this sensory corner or for teachers or for students, we might need a set instructions or maybe a set list of things that would be required in order to set up that. So will you be able to provide some light on that?
Sure.
So Jenny is going to provide, and also she has volunteered herself that if any of the teacher over here who sees this session, she has already given her contact details. Further, we are going to write the contact details down there in the video. So if you want to contact her, if you encounter some kind of a child wherein you feel that especially special and is differently able, you might need to consult an expert, then Jenny is definitely available for you to respond to your questions. Here we have a regular listener, Mr. Advocate Shahzad Firdous. He's saying that the role of teachers equally important. Teachers must accommodate such children, and any mishap with such a child in the classroom can be dangerous for child, either cause of teacher or the fellow student. It does happen that like you mentioned earlier, Jenny, that children start feeling bad about not being able to perform as well as the other child, and definitely that leaves a negative impact on the child for lifetime. That's a lifetime impact. It's not something that will go with 1 day or 2 day. How about parents? How are we going to parents, what role parents can play here?
I would say the role of the parents would be notice their expectation and know their child's ability. And it's going to go back to really doing a dance of where the child's at and what the child can do, and really working on the skills that they are able to do. And it's the realization that my child may have special needs, but it's realization, what is my expectation? What can and can't my child do? And really expose the child to things that they can do, and then a little bit add something that's a little bit of a challenge, and a little bit of a challenge, and a little bit of a challenge. And it's ultimately, really, when it comes down to it, it's what is the child's skills and what is the parent's skills and what is physically the child's ability. And it's having conversation, parents opening up dialogue with the child about, people are able to do soccer and sports really well, and some people are able to draw really well. Everyone has their strengths, and everyone has their areas of maybe a little bit of a weakness. And your area of strength is maybe to really draw and color. Maybe when it comes to running and jumping and playing, it's not really your area of strength. Or maybe you really do really well in math and you're really good with numbers. And maybe when it comes to writing, the child is struggling. So it's the realization that these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, but even so, it doesn't define me, because who I am is so much more than my academics. I'm so much more. I have my unnatural abilities. Maybe I'm a really good friend, or maybe I am really good at singing or dancing. And so the realization that even though I may not be so great in certain things, I'm really, really good in other things. And it's really using strength as a way to help work on a little bit of the challenges and on the weaknesses.
Okay. There's one more question that's coming to my mind. I've been listening a lot about mindfulness. Mindfulness was just a concept earlier for the corporate sector, wherein you were expecting these people working in offices to be, trained for this soft skill, wherein they are supposed to go into mindfulness training and they need to be, attempting that. But now that we have been seeing the emphasis coming in the education sector as well, mindfulness for students, mindfulness for teachers, mindfulness for school owners. Tell me something about it.
So mindfulness is all about moment by moment awareness of your thoughts, your feelings, your sensation, and the environment. And it's learning to cultivate non-judgment to it. And I think that the key to be able to really be mindful is through meditation. And the meditation that I practice is Vipassana meditation, which is insight meditation. It's all about the realization of my breath. And it's typically noticing my breath as it enters and leaves my nostrils, my chest, or for people, maybe your belly. And the idea is cultivating 2 minutes, 5 minutes every day consistently. And that really can help teachers, students, parents, anyone that's breathing, anyone that interacts with any person, to really learn to cultivate being in the present moment. That's really like the intention of it.
Okay, so how do you? I mean, children doing the meditation is something that I cannot imagine. How will you emphasize on that?
So I'm actually doing my doctorate and my capstone project on that. So the idea is, the title of it is Occupation-Based Mindfulness Meditation Program for the Pediatric Population. And what comes to mind, which I think is really incredible, and I've been doing a lot of analysis on a lot of different research studies. And one of the key things within a classroom setting is the teacher-student dynamic. And that is the foundation to promote emotion regulation and to actually help promote mindfulness. Children are naturally mindful. Children are naturally present. It's the adults and it's the teachers. As we get older, we get disconnected and disconnected. Children are incredible and amazing and whole and beautiful. Yes, there's behavioral things and there's challenges, and children can have mental health concerns, and they can have physical and psychological and emotional challenges 100%. But innately, children are the most present. And if you're ever going out and about with a 3-year-old, even a 5-year-old, how they're so in awe. Oh, look, there's a tree. Oh, look, I see a little bug. Oh, mommy, I want to see this. Or, oh, daddy, or, oh, auntie, or whatever it may be. Children are incredible and really, really amazing. It's really,
and we snub them for them being incredible.
And then they disconnect and they disconnect and they disconnect. And then I personally believe, and then we wonder why, especially in the States, anxiety rate is incredible. I think it's 1 out of 4 children have anxiety disorder. 1 out of 4 children in, I think, the United States, or 1 out of 6, something along those lines, which is like, what? Like it's mind-boggling beyond mind-boggling. So
it must be the same ratio over here as well. 1 out of 4 is dealing with, maybe even more. We don't know.
It's just like incredible. So I feel like a one way to help, and I feel like it's ultimately a little bit of a bandage, and this is a big passion of mine, is I'm implementing and bringing mindfulness meditation into schools, and I'm creating a program, and specifically occupation based as a method to help. Really, it's the teachers, it's not the students. The intention is to teach the teachers, because ultimately the energy that I radiate gets translated over. And if I'm teaching, let's say, college students, the energy, if I'm coming into the classroom really stressed and really having a lot of anxiety and really upset or really frustrated or whatever it may be, it's going to get radiated to that 30, 40 students that I'm working with. They may not be able to articulate it, but the energy that we come forth and bring into the world gets radiated onto anyone that we're in contact with. And it's so too, even more so with the teacher, because the teacher is typically the primal person in front of the classroom, and their energy is getting radiated. And especially children are sponges. They pick up emotions, and they're not going to maybe have the words to say it, but they're picking up on the teacher's energy and the emotion. So ultimately, it's the teachers to cultivate a meditation practice and a mindfulness meditation practice first, and then they can implement it to their students. And there's so many fun and cute, creative ways that I've implemented it and taught it to teachers. So let's say, for example, a cute little way to teach children about their heartbeat and to get in a sense of their breath. So a cute little thing that I've done and taught with the teachers is having the students jump up and down for maybe a minute. Actually, sorry, I take that back. Before they even jump it down, let the students just notice, how are you feeling? We're sitting. Just how are you feeling? You notice anything? You're picking up anything? Especially for younger kids, it's very likely that they may not be able to pick up really on physically anything that's happening in their body. So then tell the students, okay, let's get up. Let's jump. A minute, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Okay, let's stop. What are you noticing now? And then they're able to articulate, wow, I'm breathing really fast. Oh, wow, I feel my heart beating really fast. And that's one way to hone in and to teach, oh, this is our breath. This is our heartbeat. And when we're having a lot of anxiety, then this is something that may happen to our body, and let's feel. And then it's opportunity to start dialogue. And for older children, you can do that also, depending cognitively where the children's at. And I've actually done it with college students too, just to give, because we learn through experiencing. And if we're able to experiencing being mindless versus being mindful, it gives people the opportunity. And the same thing with teacher, the same thing with anyone. And I personally think within the school system, children learn through hands-on, especially 0 to 7, 0 to 8 years old. They learn through touch. They learn through fear. Through feel. They learn through movement. And a lot of these school systems have changed that paradigm. And it's the system that has come into play. It's just like really mind-boggling. And then we wonder why they're stressed and why they're anxiety. I think some of it is coming from school, some of it is coming from home, some of coming from society and expectation. But at least for school, we have the opportunity as teachers, as therapists, as educators, as principals, to change that paradigm and to create more hands-on. And I would think that children's mental health will excel, their creativity, their innovation will excel if they're not kind of within that box. And I think one way is to start with, let's say, some type of mindfulness.
I think you're connecting it with active learning, because we somehow were able to achieve active learning in the classroom, wherein we had more of activity-based learning, we had more of hands-on learning. We were trying to connect to students directly. We were trying to, make them apply their concept. So that is active learning, and it's again part of what you can say mindfulness, wherein you are making your child brain to stimulate child's brain to work on certain concept, rather than just rote learning, coming out of the rote learning scenario. So that is very much connected. But again, when we came back to online teaching, I mean, we were disconnected with that direct connection. We were able to develop activities around students. We were able to develop those things wherein we can engage them. Now, when we have come back to this online teaching, there is again a gap. A gap in the way wherein you are sitting over there, I'm sitting over there, I can't give you the activity, I can't engage you. Or maybe there's a fear, as you earlier mentioned, Jenny, that the teachers themselves are more in need of mindfulness activities rather than the students. So the fear is there, and that fear is, can be reflected on their face, and which is easily, can be identified by the child. And that's where the problem begins, because you are confused, the child is taking the advantage, and it's going all haphazard. So any comment on that how does teacher need to work on their mindfulness to be able to come back to life and, throw their fear of technology out somewhere and just go as they can?
Yeah, so
Be
I feel for the teachers as working as a professor and working at university, and I'm sure you know, and I'm sure many teachers and principals knows there's standards. And some of my really good friends are teachers as well, and they work within the special ed setting. There are standards that you are expected to do developmentally, or let's say within me, if there's AOT, Occupational Therapy Association, they have standards that are created for specific courses, and there's objectives that the students need, that I need to teach so that the student can meet it. So I understand that, and I get that, and I feel the stress, and I'm sure with in elementary and in high school and with any school in any setting, there is that. So it's the realization that taking that step back for a moment, and I need to check in within myself. And a lot of the times I tell this to parents and to teachers, there's a concept that's called HALT. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this acronym, HALT. So how am I feeling? And it's a way to check in with myself. If I'm feeling really triggered by a student, I'm feeling really triggered, let's say I'm doing a doctoral assignment or with friends or with family, it's HALT, checking in with myself. Am I hungry? H is hungry. A is angry. L is lonely, and T is tired. And that's typically where I may be feeling it. So it's hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Lonely, tired. Okay. 4 things that you need to look into, teachers. That if you're halt, that means hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. If any of these factors are there, then definitely that would reflect on your. How about the fear of technology? Sometimes it's only the fear of technology. It's not even that they're not hungry, they're not angry, they are not lonely, they are not tired, but it's the fear of using technology that's killing them. Then what?
So then it's seeing, where's that fear coming from? What is it coming from? My lack of skills. And if it's coming from lack of skills, maybe I need to reach out to another teacher. Maybe I need to take an online course. Maybe I need to have a conversation with the principal or whatever. And I'm really unsure about X, Y, and Z, and having conversation to help with that fear, because the fear is coming from somewhere. And is it realistic fear? Is it really based in reality, or is it based on something that happened in the past? Maybe individuals having fear of technology because as a child they needed to type in typing class and they were really, really slow about it, and they had a really challenge with it, and maybe that feeling is coming up. So people can take that step back, and if I'm having a fear about anything, what is it coming from? Is it coming from the present moment? Is it coming from a lack of my skill? Is it coming from some unmet need as a child? Maybe it's to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged. Where is it coming from? Can I journal about it? Maybe I can have a conversation about it. Maybe I need to develop more skills with whatever it may be. How can I go about it? How can I be proactive about it rather than getting caught up in the fear and being like, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid, I'm so nervous, and I'm not sure, and second guessing. Acknowledging, journaling about it, writing about it, conversation about it, creating skills if there is a challenge and there's trickiness with it.
So thinking about halt is going to help the solve the problem.
I think
if I say that I am halt, yes, I'm hungry, or maybe I'm tired, or I'm something whatsoever. So is it that thinking about it is going to solve the problem, or I need to do something about it before I get back to the students?
So I would say you need to take a step back. If you feel like anything, if the student, there's no trigger from the outside. So if a person is experiencing stress, anxiety, whatever, it's stemming from something from me. It's not stemming from the other person. It's the same thing with the student. So the realization that the student, as long as the student is not a threat to themselves or others, there's no safety, and they're not causing any harm to anyone else, it's something coming from oneself. So if a student is hanging upside down and they're about to like jump out the window or do something like, then that's where you stop it right then and there. If it's something that the student is saying, or they're not understanding, or the teacher's feeling frustrated about, it's a realization, what is coming up within me before I even react or say anything. Take that pause, take that breath for the moment. What's coming up for me? How am I feeling? What was my thinking beforehand? Am I being triggered by it? Is there another way for me to help the student, teach the student before I even say anything? Maybe the class needs to get up and move. Maybe I am picking up on the energy of the class. Maybe it's time for a movement break. Maybe it's time for a water break. Maybe it's time for recess. Maybe it is time to refocus and do a silly song or a silly dance just to change the mood, change the environment. Maybe it's not the teacher. Maybe it is collectively the energy of the students. Maybe they're sitting for so long in the classroom. So that may be coming into play. If the teacher...
If it do we relate this with the concept of brain break?
I'm not so familiar. I haven't heard that. I usually call like movement breaks. I'm not sure if it's the same. I'm not so familiar with brain breaks.
Brain break is a concept wherein it says that the child can concentrate only for 20 minutes, and after every 20 minutes, you need to give them a brain break wherein they can either, the one you said that they can jump around, they can have water, they can go out for an air walk, or they can have a dance, a little of anything, which is going to activate their brain all over again.
Yeah. So
Great.
it's similar to that. It sounds like, yeah, it's very similar to that. I just haven't heard it called that before. Yeah.
Right. Okay. There's one more question from Mr. Advocate. He's not asking a question, but he's like raising his concern that something may happen at home. At home, the parents are taking care of the child. But what if something happens at school? Is it a sudden thing wherein the OT is required, the occupational therapist is required, or it is a process? It may happen suddenly.
I'm not sure what you mean.
What I mean is that the child is being taken care at home very nicely. The parents are taking care of it. But that concern that Mr. Advocate is raising over here is, what if something happens to the child at school? So my question is that, is it that the occupational therapist requirement, suddenly you get to know that child needs occupational therapy? But I feel it's more of a process wherein the child may not be able to perform for some period of time, and then you realize that this is what the problem is.
So I was about to say, it's a process, and it's the realization, if there's red flags and the teacher is noticing red flags, then it's potentially an OT coming in and doing a screening. And then based on the screening, a screening is to see, is there a need for an evaluation? And it's the realization, if there's a need for evaluation, then, and it could take some time to be receiving occupational therapy services. However, if a child is having a physical injury, then it could be needed that could be something that's really fast. And yes, there is a need. If a child is injuring their arm or their legs, or they're injured their eye or their head, or if there's some cognitive thing, that process will go way faster in comparison if they're not 100% sure yet and if something is developing over time.
Okay, there's one more question. Not a question, but let me tell you a little bit of dilemma over here. We in Pakistan do not have professional teachers. That means for being a teacher in the school, we need not to complete a bachelor's of education, or we need not to complete a master's of education. If you're free after inter, you are free after 10th grade, you can go into the teaching and you can be in the classroom and teach a bunch of students. That's the dilemma over here. Even you might just be a simple bachelor's and not a bachelor's in education to be in the classroom. So is it essential for a teacher to be a psychologist when being a teacher?
I don't think so. No, I think it's essential for the teacher to really be, as best as they can, to be self-aware of themselves. And I feel like through meditation, through learning, through teachings, through continuing educational classes, through conversation with other therapists and other teachers, that can help. I personally believe, and I think honestly especially with teachers and with occupational therapists, I'm not sure for speech, I feel like we have a lot of roles and we have a lot of hats. So at times I do feel like there's certain things that I am having a role of a psychologist, I am having a role of a teacher, I am having a role of a speech therapist, I am having a role of a nutritionist to my ability and based on my skill level, but we're all, I feel like, have little tendency and little things of it. And I think just learning different skills, let's say from a psychologist, it won't necessarily make you a psychologist, or learning different skills from a teacher won't necessarily make you a teacher per se, but it's the realization of learning these skills to help enhance and to further develop teaching to students or developing oneself and as you interact with other people.
So again, there is one more comment over here, that it's much time to go through procedures effectively to integrate the new normal with one own's potential and zeal. Now, I think it was related to what we were talking about, not being technically strong or technically savvy to be handling the technology part on their own. So yes, that's a problem. I agree. And as you earlier said, Kelly, that teachers need to be more concerned about being brainful, or being mindful, rather, I would say, being mindful to be able to interact with the child. So is it any tip that you would like to give to the teacher, that you should do this before you go into the online class? Because that's where they need, because if I also believe one more thing, that if I'm not prepared for my class, if I'm not prepared for talking to you today, then definitely I'll be confused. I will panic. I will create a lot of fuss over here. So that's where I think my preparation does count as well. But yes, if I'm not technically sound, I may be prepared yet get confused. But is there any way that I can, reconsider myself or vamp myself in order to go back to the online class? Because there has been harassment happening in the classrooms, online classrooms now. So teachers are ending up crying and, yes, facing a lot these days just because they have to be online. They can't control the child. They feel that the children are getting out of control. They're not listening. They are not engaged. So any way, which is any possible tip that you would like to give to the teachers in order to, get that hold back?
It's a little bit of a difference of a paradigm. The only person that we can control is ourselves. And it's the realization when I'm coming into a classroom, or especially when I am teaching, it's the realization, why am I doing this? Why am I teaching? And it's typically for me personally to be of service of others. I want to spread occupational therapy. I want to spread mindfulness. I want to share a message with the world that I feel is very inspiring and very inspirational, that can really have an impact on a lot of people. So it's a teacher taking that step back. Why am I doing this? And it's the realization I only control myself. And I can only control me and my own innate ability and my own innate person. So it's a realization, if students are having very big behaviors and very strong reactions and strong places, and whatever the child's age is, it's coming from them. It's nothing to do with the teacher. The child doesn't know how to maybe manage their emotions or their thoughts, or they don't have that filter. So it's having dialogue and having conversations about that. And it's a realization, and every student is different, but it's a realization of, where is this coming from the student? Clearly the student is hurting. Clearly the student is frustrated. And I see why. Let's say for me, I'm incredibly, I want to travel and I want to be able to see my friends and I want to be out and about. And imagine for a teenager, now they can't. What? How could they not be? How could they not be upset? How could they not be frustrated? Why would they want to be interested in learning, honestly? So it's creating things that are creative and out of the box and life focus and skill focus, and explaining simply the importance of it and connecting to the students as humans, as people, because we're all striving for the same thing. We all want to learn, we all want to grow, we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, and how to connect with the students. Okay, so for a day or for for a half hour, 10 minutes, having a dialogue of connecting as people and as human and doing a fun thing, okay, yes, there's protocol and there's routine and there's things that needs to be done. Okay, you'll get it done. If not, the students will read it on their own. They'll do it by themselves. And if it's not to the T, okay. But which is more, the interaction and the livelihood or the quality? Or is it about the control and the students need to do X, Y, and Z? I personally think it's about quality and connecting. And yes, you'll get it in, and maybe it's not to the T of how you wanted or you thought or it should or it needed to be, but it's the realization of my own expectation and what do I have. And it's the realization that we're in unforeseen times and we're all experiencing. And imagine for a child and for a teenager that their brain is not developed, and for adults, our brain is so developed, and we're all experiencing stress and anxiety. We're all affected by COVID, even more so a teenager, even more so a kid. And they don't even have the words to articulate. So as adults, we maybe got a little bit better at it. But are we really that much better at it? Okay, we have the skills and we have the ideas of it. But the realization, it's not about to control at all. It's about, I control myself. I control my vibration. I control my energy and what I radiate. Okay, so a half hour, I'm doing something fun and interactive. And the teacher can be open and honest and tell, I was feeling really hurt. And when we speak like this, and being open and being vulnerable with the students, because innately I believe that we all have goodness and we all have love. And when people are acting rude or upset or angry, it's stemming from something that they're feeling really hurt, and it just gets projected onto the other person.
So your basic idea is, instead of controlling your classroom, you need to control yourself as a teacher, and at the same time engage your children, engage and interact with them. Talking with them is equally important, because it's not you only who's sailing in this boat; they are sailing along with you. If you are something that you are missing on to that one-to-one interaction, even children are missing on that one-to-one interaction. They are missing rather much more, because they have been more social than you people are. You just interact in one scenario wherein you have 25 children sitting with you and you're talking to them and you're going and back home and you're gone. But they have been together with each other, with the children being with each other. They enjoy their company, and that's what their life was for them. Life was for them like that. But now it's totally different. It's a 360-degree change. Farina Faisal has mentioned here that paradigm change has to be accepted, or else there will be no educational process going on. Learning should never stop. That's very true to what Jenny also mentioned, that learning should never stop, and you should be, again, the content that you are teaching should not be that important wherein you start losing your personal interaction, your personal touch with your child. That is more important. Once you develop that, personal rapport, once you develop that one-to-one interaction, children will do whatever you want them to do, but at least develop that rapport, develop that connection, start working on interacting with child real naturally, wherein let be yourself, stop being control, stop being in a one single platform teacher. You need to be with them, along with them, teach with them, learn with them, because there may be things technically you may not be sound with. That's okay, the children will understand, they will teach you. It's okay if they teach you. That's equally, I mean, I don't understand one thing, that why are we supposed to be consider ourselves superior enough to know everything? We can't. It's really not possible.
No.
Yeah, we're not. It's not humanly possible. So let's share the platform with the children, wherein we have the same platform. We know something that they need to learn. They know something that we may need to learn. So let's share that platform. Let them teach you. You teach them, and let them teach you at the same time. That's where you will have that connection. The connection that Jenny was talking about. That connection will be there, because you need to accept that you're not an expert on everything, and we cannot be. That's the natural thing. So start feeling that confidence. You will start feeling your confidence in you when you will start taking this consideration that you are not an expert and you need not to know everything. Yes, you will upskill with the passage of time as per need, and we are already doing that. We all teachers are doing that. So that was a brilliant conversation from Jenny. Jenny, last word from you, and then we'll say goodbye to our lovely audience. Yes.
I've been incredibly honored and incredibly grateful. Thank you. And it's just been an incredible dialogue, and just having conversation with a like-minded individual is just really incredible. And I feel like it's so needed, especially in today's going times. If the education system all over the world wants to stay and wants to maintain, there has to be change. And I think that's really the key of it. I would say something that I was thinking about. We all want our students, our kids, our friends, our family, we want people to be joyous. We want people to be happy. But really, when it comes down to it, it's really as best as everyone can to live in the moment and to be in the moment. And it's about, as I mentioned in the beginning, the quality of life. And that's really the key of it. How is the quality of life? And it's not about being happy and joyous all the time. It's about the quality of life. What is the quality of life of the students? And how can we be of service to help the quality of life through education, through learning, through helping to bring out students' passion and to help them develop a love for learning and to want to have this lifelong process of learning. How can we have that ability to be able to do that and to inspire and to help and encourage? And some students, it may not be for them, but if we're having that opportunity, that 1 or that 5 or that 10, and the ability and the impact that we can have in that world just by that one student, is that realization about the quality. It's not really about the students need to be happy or joyous. It's really the quality of what's coming into play, and cultivating students that are lifelong learners. And that is foundation, because anything they do that in their life, they want to learn about astronaut or psychology or social work or even knitting or cars. Cultivating that it's within their passion, I think, is really key.
And we've been receiving a lot of praise. That was a lovely comment, last comment. I mean, I am just holding my tears right now. And it was a brilliant talk. I'm glad you took out time from your busy schedule and you made yourself available for us, for our audience over here in Pakistan. We are all very happy to have you over here, and the kind of information you've shared and the commitment that you have made that you're going to be available for us. You're going to share those resources that we've already discussed. So we'll be really looking forward for all that support, and we are really happy to have you over here. I'm glad, and there were a lot of things that were, that is not easy to be conveyed otherwise, which you conveyed it really well, which may be minor things in our consideration, but they are not minor otherwise. So that is something that you pointed out, and we made people realize that we need to consider and we need to think on those lines as well. So thank you so very much, Annie. It was lovely having you over here, and we love you for whatever you are. and keep doing it. Your motivation is what is required, and be with us. We'll call you again on our channel. We'll call you again, and we'll make you interact with more people, because we know that now people are going to get hold of you one way or the other to get their problems solved, and that is what the education sector is all about, to solve all the problems that the people may have.
It's been an honor and a privilege and just incredible having conversation with you prior. You're just like incredible with what you're doing for the world, and your story is just incredible, and like just amazed to just connect and just have conversation with you. So thank you for all that you do, and for the connection of teachers all over the world, and for people just all over the world. It's just really incredible.
Thank you so much, Chanie. Bye bye.
Bye.
So ये थी हमारी बातें चैनी के साथ। बहुत सारी बातें जो हमने कभी शायद सोची नहीं, शायद हमने इस बारे में कभी ध्यान नहीं दिया, वो छोटी छोटी चीज़ें जो हमारे पास रेगुलर रूटीन में होती रहती हैं। चैनी ने कहा कि अगर सबसे ज़्यादा जो ज़रूरत है माइंडफुलनेस की, वो है ज़रूरत टीचर्स को, यानी कि अपने आप को अपना हॉल्ट चेक करें। क्या आप हंग्री हैं, क्या आप अलोन हैं, या आप जो एंग्री हैं, या फिर आप लोनली हैं, या फिर आप टायर्ड हैं। तो ये चारों सिचुएशन में आपकी डेफिनेटली आपकी रिफ्लेक्शन आपके चेहरे पे नजर आएगी, और आपकी टीचिंग पे इसका इम्पैक्ट आएगा। तो अपने आप को पहले कंपोज करें, अपने आप को संभालें, अपने आप को जो है वो इस काबिल कर लें कि जहाँ पे हम बच्चों से जब इंटरेक्ट करें तो ये सारी परेशानियां हमें अंदर से परेशान ना करें। टेक्नोलॉजी इज नॉट अ मसला। अगेन, टेक्नोलॉजी अपने आप को अपस्किल करें, आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ही बहुत सारे लोग कर रहे हैं, और मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि टीच ऑनलाइन के चैनल पे वो ट्यूटोरियल्स देख देख के अपनी टीचिंग एंड लर्निंग को बेहतर से बेहतरीन बनाते जा रहे हैं। माइंडफुलनेस की बहुत सारी अच्छी एक्टिविटीज बताई चैनी ने। मतलब मैं तो समझती हूँ कि आज की टॉक मेरे लिए भी एक लर्निंग थी। तो आई होप यू मस्ट हैव एंजॉयड इट। और मुझे पता है कुछ लोगों को शायद लैंग्वेज की वजह से मसला होगा। मेरी कोशिश होगी कि मैं इसका थोड़ा सा जिस्ट आपके लिए अपनी लोकल लैंग्वेज में अवेलेबल कर दूँ, नेटिव लैंग्वेज में अवेलेबल कर दूँ, ताकि ये कि जो लोग इससे फ़ायदा उठाना चाहें वो भी उठा सकें। इसके मेन पॉइंट्स मैं कोशिश करके आपको अवेलेबल कर दूँगी। जाने से पहले जैसे कि मैं हमेशा कहती हूँ कि लाइक कर दीजिएगा, कमेंट कर दीजिएगा, अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है वो भी कमेंट में छोड़ दें। इसके अलावा ये कि सब्सक्राइब चैनल हो चुका होगा डेफिनेटली, और अगली वीडियो जो है इंशाल्लाह वो आएगी 4 अगस्त को हमारी टीच टॉक। तब तक के लिए मैं आपको कहूँगी गुड बाय।